Hey, welcome back to my channel, IndieAuthor Jill. I'm Jill. This is my channel. Sorry, I'm tired. I today was a very busy day. Like from the moment we got in the door, it was just hit the ground running. And tomorrow's not going to be even any easier. So, I am still trying to find time to read in between shifts. Um, it's just like I said, it's taking longer because the shifts are just so intense. But regardless, um, so I'm reading I'm reading books, uh, indie author books myself, just me myself, and then I'm also reading indie author books with my husband. And one of the books we are reading is Spies in Their Spare Time by Neil P. Randle. Um, and um, it takes place in a lot of different places. Mostly, its home base is England. Um, and MI6 has a bit of a problem. Uh, so the problem that MI6 has is, how do we keep our spies from becoming double agents? Um, they have had a couple of agents that turned double agent on them, and um they're like, okay, we need to figure out how to create and recruit spies, good spies, very intelligent people who are easy to get into different countries, who blend in easily, but we also need them to be loyal. We need them to not um, turn on us. And how do we prevent the double cross? And the thought strikes them, what if the spies themselves didn't realize they themselves were, in fact, spies? It's kind of hard to be a double agent when you don't even know you're an agent in the first place. So then they have a new problem. How do we get spies that get and recruit and train spies without them realizing they are in fact spies? And so the nest is born. And the first thing they have to do is find a company, some kind of company that can act as a shell, that will not immediately raise suspicion that these this is a spy shell training facility. And this is where Fletcher and Reed come into the picture. And what I like about how the story progresses is it kind of goes back and forth between past and present. It starts off with uh, talking about um, MI6 and their problem. Then it talks about a young man named Christopher Scott, who has just about graduated. He's done with college and he's looking for a job. And he finds a job with a company called Fletcher and Reed. Then it goes up, it goes on to explain how Fletcher and Reed came to be founded. And Fletcher and Reed started off as two young men who were in a grocery business together. They were in separate businesses, and when times got hard, they decided, especially during the Great Depression, they decided to join forces. What's better than two people running a grocery store than two people who know how to run a grocery company running it together? So Fletcher and Reed was born. And these two um, started this company where they didn't just do groceries, they also did products, toilets and toilet cleaning products and things like that. And that required a bit of intelligence. They needed people who could design the products that were going to go into homes, whether it be a gadget or a gizmo or an appliance or a cleaning solution, a toilet bowl cleaner, an oven cleaner, um, a dish cleaner, whatever it was. And so that required a research and development team. That required a microbiology team. And so as Chris is doing the interview, they're asking him different questions, and very little of it has anything to do with groceries or household products, he realizes. Um, they ask him a lot of math questions. They ask him about some of his papers that he worked on. Um, and he does very well for them, and they decide that this is going to be one of their nest candidates. Then there is Stephanie. Um, I can't remember her last name. Um, it doesn't say here either. I don't know. I think her name is last name is Collins. It's possible. Um, I don't know. Uh, most of the time they refer to them as Chris and Steph. Um, but um, Steph is in the microbiology team, and um, George and Barbara are both nest training. Um, they're both trainers for the nest. There are four guys in the nest that they refer to as uncles, and these quote unquote uncles are not just guides, but they are trainers, they are advisors. They are the ones that are guiding the candidates through the nest program, and um, helping them qualify for the nest, and then um, guiding them through their spying and their espionage and whatnot. And so the way that they get them through there, through different, the way they get them to blend in is that Fletcher and Reed is a worldwide, becomes a worldwide franchise, and they alternate. Because Fletcher and Reed are two different people, the question becomes, well, who inherits after the original Fletcher and Reed pass on? And the reality becomes, well, we'll alternate. Um, Fletcher's son will take over. One of Fletcher's kids will take over, and then when he's ready to retire, one of the Reed grandchildren will take over, and then one of the Fletcher great grandchildren, which is where we're at that point. I think is a great grandchild, Fletcher. But it goes back and forth between a Fletcher and a Reed taking over. Well, we get down to John Fletcher, who has done very well for himself. He's been very successful, and it's actually, I believe, in John's time that the nest gets invented in um, the Fletcher and Reed family to decide, okay, we're going to use Fletcher and Reed as a shell company to help MI6 create these spies. The problem is that the next in line is a Reed, and I believe it's Edward Reed. Um, no, it's Kevin. Kevin Reed. Uh, Kevin Reed is the next most likely candidate to take over for the Fletcher and Reed company. Except he's very entitled. He's very the problem that you run in with this being a guaranteed job is that eventually you are going to run into this problem where the next heir, who should be the heir apparent, ends up being entitled, lazy, and uh just not the right fit for running this company. And Kevin climbs the ladder, but he doesn't climb it the way that everyone else in his family and the Fletcher family has climbed it. It uh, he is he's a terrible problem. He is, like I said, he's arrogant. He doesn't get along well with people. He's, as one person put it, just a complete dick, you know. And he's self-righteous, he's arrogant, um, he can't admit when he's wrong. He is terribly pompous with no reason to be and nothing to back it up with. And so John Fletcher realizes that there's a potential that Kevin's not going to be able to take over the role, which means he has to find a new candidate to be a potential CEO of the company. And he finds Philippe Lassalle. And Kevin, realizing that there is nothing saying that he is guaranteed the spot after all, and that he actually does have to earn his spot, now suddenly he takes a very discerned interest in his role, and he ends up hiring he ends up running around trying to get people to talk to him, asking them what is unlikable about me, what's my worst qualities, what do people really think about me, and he starts getting them to most people are hemming and hawing, or they don't want to say anything, and he could tell that they're not being honest with him. But then there's a few that are being honest, and they're like, okay, well, you want to know the truth? You're a dick. Nobody likes you, nobody respects you because you're arrogant, you're pompous. You have to be the smartest person in the room. Even when you're wrong, you won't admit that you're wrong. You're unlikable, you're unapproachable. They run him down a laundry list and basically are very honest enough with him to tell him, these are all your faults. These are the reasons you are not going to be a CEO, and these are the reasons we hope you don't become a CEO. And so he hires somebody to help him change his image. And he's like, okay, this is what people are saying about me. I want this position. How do I do that? And she starts working with him, and she pulls no punches, and she will tell him, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. If he doesn't do what she tells him to, then she will not move forward with him. She will stay with a specific, like, okay, we need to do this. If he will not do that, she's like, okay, well, we're not moving forward until you do that. And good luck taking orders from LaSalle. Period. And so begrudgingly he will do what she asks him to do. And he finds that despite how much he hates doing what she asks, she's right. It starts to work. People start to respond to him better. There ends up being a turnaround. People open up to him more. People respond to him better. Um, People like him more. And the arrogance doesn't necessarily go away, but it does take a shift to, and he starts using it actually. And the image consultant is very good at this of recognizing, okay, you cannot help who you are. You are an arrogant idiot. Let's lean into that. You know, let's expand that beyond you to your people. If you're the best at this, then your team has to be the best team that there is. And you have to believe that your team is the best and that your team can come through. If you believe you can do it, then you have to believe that they can too. You have to believe the people behind you as much as you believe in yourself. And you have to think of highly as highly of them as you think of yourself. And so he leans into that and he really starts to get into that. And one of the people in his uh, corner is Chris Scott. So when anytime something comes up with Chris, he puts his chips all in with Chris. What he doesn't realize is that Chris is one of the MI6 nest candidates, and that once he gets um, through to the nest, Chris himself still has no idea that he's in the nest. He still has no idea he's a spy. But he also understands, uh, but Kevin understands that there is a project called Project Nest. He understands that a lot of people, including his compatriot John, is I want to say family member, but they're not family. They just grew up together and knew that what their role was going to be with each other. And but he knows that John knows what the nest is. And at first he starts thinking, well, I don't have to know about the nest. If I don't know about the nest now, then I don't need to know. It's something that somebody beneath me needs to know. It's not until um they ask him and Philippe Lassalle to go in and take a tour of the Fletcher and Reed Research and Development Facility with Chris and Stephanie leading them, that he realizes that this is something he needs to know. And they tell him these are the kind of questions you're going to be asking them. This is the qualifications we're looking for the nest. That is all you need to know is these are the qualifications, these are the questions, and go. LaSalle and Reed have absolutely no idea what the nest is, but both of them realize that if they want the spot for CEO, they are going to have to know what this is. The problem is that LaSalle is already working for the KGB, which is a rival um, spy network in Russia to the spy network MI6 in England. And so, as much as you don't want Kevin Reed to win, you also want LaSalle to be found out. And at this point, when they're doing this tour, nobody realizes that something's up with LaSalle. So they go through this interview and tour with Chris and Steph, and when they report back to John, they let him know that based on the qualifications that they were given, both Stephanie and Chris qualify for Project Nest, and they report that back, and John smiles and says, "The nest is full." Of course, John and Philippe and Kevin have no idea what this means, but realizing that they both need to know, they start kind of digging in their own way. And you start to realize how Chris and Stephanie are going to be utilized because Fletcher and Rita are such a global company. The company sends them out on these assignments. Um, and they're like, "Hey, we need you in." For instance, they decide to test them a little bit, and they send um, Chris to Hungary. And while he's in Hungary, he meets some people, and um, things are weird over there. They're sitting by a fire, and there's a guy playing a violin, and they start talking, and then they stop talking and start talking about something else. And Chris is like, "That was a weird conversation shift." And they tell Chris, "Hey, let's pay our bill and go for a walk." And he's like, "Okay." So they take him out for a walk, and they take him down to the river. And they tell him that the guy playing the violin was a an officer of sorts, and it was not safe to talk around him. Um, so they tell him to give a message to George, and they tell him, "You must tell George as soon as you get. We're gonna tell him the message. Do not write it down. Memorize it. When you get home, go to George. Find him face to face. First thing that you can, find him face to face and tell him in confidence these exact words." So they tell him the message. Chris hangs on to that message. They end up traveling by train, and his new friend points out that there are people on the train that are also not to be trusted, and that they have to be careful about what they say. And Chris realizes, in his from Chris's estimation, it's, "Oh, these are like rivals." Um, he realizes he signed confidentiality papers for Fletcher and Reed, and that the kind of things that they are developing in his workshop and whatnot are kinds of things that give their company an edge in the market. And so, uh, from Chris's standpoint, I have to be careful what I say and where I'm going about what I'm doing, where I'm going, and who I'm meeting and whatnot, because there are other people who are looking for that kind of information to take away our edge in the markets. So I can't tell them about um, a garbage disposal that we're building. It's England; they don't have garbage disposals. I'm sorry. Um, but whatever it is that they're making, whatever little gadgets and gizmos that they make for the home, um, they can't he's got to be close vested about it, because, well, if another company finds out that we're developing this particular gizmo, then they will develop that gizmo, and they might get it done before we do, and then we lose our competitive edge in the market, and we can't do that. And so he goes back home, and he finds George as soon as he can and pulls him into his office and gives him the message, and he gives it to him word for word. And they realize, okay, Chris is someone who can be trusted with information. We can give him messages, and he can remember them well enough to relay them. Um, Stephanie is also being put to the test. She gets, honesty questions. Like, they'll ask her questions. They already know the answer. The question isn't whether or not uh, the question isn't um did she do, or does she have knowledge that we know she did, things we know she did, or did she have knowledge? What they do is they ask, okay, can she trust us to be honest with us? So if we ask, hey, we it seemed like this thing happened, is that possible? And if they know, okay, well, if she lies to us, we'll know if she lies to us. The question isn't whether she did what she did. We know what she did. The question is, will she trust us enough to be honest with us? Will she be open with us? And she is, which is part of her testing of, okay, well, we know that we can trust her to be straight with us. We know that he can trade information. And so they start operating in Berlin. Um, and what Chris and Steph don't realize is that they are right in the middle of the whole Berlin Wall thing, the East and West Germany, and um, what their what their role in this is going to be, and they have no idea. They do quickly figure out that something is going on, but um, I'm not going to tell you whether they figure out or not they're spies. I'm also not going to tell you if they figure out that LaSalle is a double agent, or if Reed gets the CEO position or not. They're and those are like minor things compared to the big thing at stake with the whole Berlin Wall issue and everything. There's so much going on, and the writer Neil P. Randle does such a great job of uh, pacing things to where you always, as much as it feels like there's a lot of information, you as the reader feel like you are able to step up, stay up to date, and stay in the loop. This is the first of three novels. The second novel is Spies in Mandela's Time, and the next one is Spies in On Borrowed Time. And each one, you still have George Rankin and Barbara Strand and um the whole cast of characters. So you don't have to be struck with what I like about the series is that you're not going into it and you're like, okay, well, now we have all new characters and a whole new spy system. It's still the Nest. It's still George Rankin. It's still Barbara Strand. And yeah, it was, I'm not going to say it was a fun adventure, because I mean, it wasn't not fun. There was a lot of um there's a lot of humor in it. My husband and I laughed at it a lot. I had to read most of Stephanie's part because my husband uh talks like talks he reads like he talks. He talks like a man who is careful with his words. Stephanie, not so much. Stephanie is a character like me. She will talk fast, she will talk a lot, and she will have a hard time letting you get a word in edgewise. So I found it very easy for me to read Stephanie's parts. Um, I especially love the difference in perspective between Chris and Steph of how they view their own relationship as coworkers, and because they work in the same facility. She works in microbiology, he works in research and development, but they work in the same building. They also are on George's darts team, which is the only thing he takes more seriously than the Nest. And they are, like I said, both Nest candidates. Um, but so they spend a lot of time together, and like they both like I said, they both have a different perspective of what uh their working relationship is, what their personal relationship is, and what their uh just how they are, not only with each other but with Barb and George. And um Steph sometimes gets frustrated with him because she's just like, I don't know if you genuinely have no idea what is going on here, or if you're just that reserved. Like, are you just being cautious and stoic, or are you just really that uh are you really just a dumb nerdy Brit, you know? And she's a lot more like outgoing and a lot more yeah, that's a good word for it. She's outgoing, she's talkative, she's more emotional. She shows her emotions a lot easier, like um when they first meet, they meet by Chris nearly bowling her over. Um, but um, and she immediately launches into. She's like, "What is your problem? You know what? Why are you in such a hurry? Look where you're going. Why don't you?" And he's very apologetic, but he's like, "There were two of us involved in this collision. You could have been paying attention too. Like it if I ran into you, it's not just because I wasn't paying attention. You weren't paying attention either." But instead of getting upset, like I said, with Steph, she's very emotional and she's very outgoing, and she's like, "Why don't you watch where you're going?" He's like, "Sorry, are you okay?" And he's like, "I mean, she didn't see me either. Why am I getting blamed here?" You know? But he immediately goes on that, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It just didn't see it. I wasn't paying attention. Did you just call me a footbag?" And because she did call him a name, but she was using her own language. She's from South Africa. And so uh, when when he's like, "Yeah, sorry, sorry, are you hurt? Are you okay? I just did you just call me a footbag?" And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Foot bag. I think you called me a foot bag? What's a foot bag? I don't know what a foot bag is, but it doesn't sound like something I want to be associated with." And she just busts out laughing and immediately dissolves the tension and whatnot. And this is their first meeting. And like I said, she's very emotional and he's just very stoic in this situation. He's like apologizing. He's checking to make sure she's all right, trying to understand what it is that she called him. And uh, she's laughing and everything. And he's like, "Okay, okay, okay. So apparently, I haven't made the most egregious mistake of my life of like trampling someone. Let me at least make it up to you and get you something to eat, and then you can explain to me what exactly a foot bag is." And so that starts their relationship of getting to know each other and figuring out that they both work at the same company and what have you. But it gives you a really good idea of their relationship dynamics, of him being very almost clueless, because unless somebody tells him, you know and he realizes that, like, um when, like, in relationships, half the time he's in a relationship and doesn't even realize he's in a relationship. It's just like, I like this girl and I like hanging out with her and we have a good time, and does she feel the same way about me? In the meantime, she's sitting there going, "Would you just kiss me, you idiot?" And so Stephanie is very much, like I said, the very opposite. Like, once she gets it in her head of, she, like I said, she was very much on the defensive immediately of, I I got ran into, somebody wasn't paying attention, therefore I am the victim. And then he stops her with the, did you just call me a footbag? And she's like, what? I Let me educate you on some foreign language there, Sonny. you know. Um, but yeah, as usual, I will leave this in the description down below. I'll link up to this down below. I will leave a link to my own books down below. It'll probably be, which one do I want to? I don't know. It'll probably be one of the middle grade fantasy, the world of Eudocia, the magic door, the world of Eudocia. That's what I've been putting. Um, Other than that, I will see you guys later. I know in the last video I did say I was reading Destiny Rotten Row. I am still reading a Destiny Rotten Row. That's just the one that I'm reading personally by myself. It just so happens that my husband and I got done with this one before um I got done with Destiny Rotten Row, so that'll probably be the next video. I will see you guys later, and hmm, what do we put? You know what? Let's let's do a clock. If you don't forget to like and subscribe and comment, and if you don't know what to comment, since it says since the um uh title is Spies in Their Spare Time, let's do a clock. So if you want to just leave an emoji to let me know that you were here, just use the emoji of a clock or a watch or any kind of timepiece of your choosing. Until then, I will see you guys later. Bye.